Thank you.
Thank you. As everybody probably knows, this meeting is being recorded. Heidi, can you hear me? Okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes.
My sincere apology for not being at this first meeting in person. The time is 7 p.m. on Wednesday, January 22nd, 2025. I'd like to call this Active Transportation and Traffic Safety Advisory Committee meeting to order. Our first order of business would be to nominate the vice chair. Does anybody want to nominate themselves or somebody else? May I see who's been on this committee before? I know Heidi hasn't. Okay, so could one of the three of you volunteer to be vice chair? Who's been on the committee the longest?
Wendy, it's Owen Heritage here. I'll put my name forward for vice chair.
Okay, Owen, thank you. So we have one nomination. Linda, I believe that I say if there are no further nominations, the nominations are closed. May I have a mover and a seconder for the motion to nominate the vice chair? Thank you, Heidi. And who can second? You can't second, Owen.
I'll second Dave McLaughlin.
Okay, so may we go around the table, starting with you, Mr. Fleck, and just introduce yourself and perhaps say why you wanted to be on this committee?
Thank you, Councillor Gartner. My name is Steve Fleck, and I would like to thank Councillor Gartner and members of Council for appointing me for the second time to this committee. I was very pleased and privileged to be part of the committee that brought to Council the Aurora Active Transportation Master Plan, worked on by the wonderful gentleman sitting to my left, and who you will hear from shortly. They did some great work at WSP to create that active transportation master plan for Aurora. I was honored to be part of some final input and back and forth in fine tuning that final document. And I think it'll be a great roadmap for Aurora for the next 10 to 20 years. Very pleased to be part of my second term here. I am a lifelong cyclist, competed at the highest level in the sport of triathlon and road cycling a number of years ago. Now just actively advocate for more cycling and active transportation wherever I may be. Aurora has been my home since the early 2000s. Over to you, Dave.
Thank you. Before we go to you, Dave, Linda has reminded me that we did not vote on the motion to elect Mr. Heritage as vice chair. So all those in favor, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. Okay, let's continue.
Hi, my name is Dave McLaughlin. I'm a longtime resident of Aurora. I work at a consulting firm, WSP. I've been there for over 30 years, and I lead our national active transportation planning and design practice in Canada. And I was lucky enough, my team and I, to be retained over the last more than 10 years. I initially co-wrote Aurora's Trails Master Plan as part of a separate team, and then more recently was part of the successful team who was retained to work on Aurora's Active Transportation Master Plan. And many on this committee and many of the public had a contribution to it and in its writing. And we're really pleased with it. My wife works in Home Depot in Aurora. Now she was a marketing specialist many years ago and partly retired. I have a daughter who's off at Guelph, doing marketing and business. And so now that she's off, I have found a little bit more time to myself. And I really wanted to have the opportunity to give back to the community that I live in. And this seemed to be really the ideal committee for me to participate, given my experience. So I'm really pleased as well that my application was accepted and I've been appointed to this committee, and I thank council for that.
Very, very nice. Mr. Heritage.
Good evening, Wendy. Hi, Owen Heritage here. I am a long-term Aurora resident. Lived in Aurora, grew up in Aurora, lived in Aurora since 1984. That's when we, as a family, moved into Aurora. So I've seen lots of growth over that time period. By profession, I am the president of Bermudan Services Canada, which is the largest traffic control company in Canada. Most people recognize us as Powell Contracting, which our parent company is now Bermudan. I was on this committee last term. I've worked with in and out with all different sort of traffic services, from regional to provincial to federal, in different aspects. So looking forward to contribute and see what changes we can make.
Thank you. And you're up.
Good evening. My name is Gino Martino. I've been a resident of Aurora since 2010. Prior to that, I was a Torontonian. I've been in the engineering field since I graduated, spending almost half of my career, if not a little bit more, in the consulting side, similar to Dave. I've spent the remaining half now at a local municipality within York region, specializing in engineering. Again, this is my second term on the committee, and I'm looking really to provide some insight and some lessons learned and how to deliver projects in the most cost-effective way. I think it's one thing to create a master plan. It's another thing to deliver on that master plan. And again, really providing that contribution to Aurora, if I can, working at other municipalities, kind of, like I said, see some of the struggles in terms of funding and the issues that come up. So hopefully to provide some of that additional insight on the committee. That's
Thank
it.
you. Miss Schellenhorn, did I say that correctly, Heidi?
Shellhorn, close enough.
Okay,
No,
close.
thank you.
No cigar. Yeah.
Good press.
Oh, I've already made my first mistake and did not hit the mic. Thank you. Good evening, Counselor. No problem. It's Shellhorn, but that's okay. So I hopefully will have a slightly different perspective that I'm hoping will contribute to the committee. I am a longtime resident of Aurora since 1987. And not unlike Steve, have traversed many, many kilometers on these roads as an Ironman triathlete as well. So I come with a perspective as a resident, long-term resident, having seen the growth that many of you have seen as well. But I have, I hope, experience that will also give a different perspective, and that is 33 years with York Regional Police. As a young constable, spending a number of years in the traffic unit, and seeing how important road safety is, in fact. Also having gone through the ranks, fortunately, and been in charge of the traffic bureau at the time, gave me another perspective as a leader in that position as well. Directing road safety programs, sitting on the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police Traffic Committee and the OACP Traffic Committee. And then, I'm hoping that duality will hopefully advance the committee as well. So I'm very grateful for the opportunity. I look forward to that as well. Thank you very much.
Well, it looks like we have an excellent committee. I'm looking forward to working with you all. Before we continue any further, I'm going to read the land acknowledgement. The town of Aurora acknowledges that the Anishinaabe lands on which we live and work are the traditional and treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island, as well as many other nations whose presence here continues to this day. As the closest First Nation community to Aurora, we recognize the special relationship the Chippewas have with the lands and waters of this territory. They are the water protectors and environmental stewards of these lands, and as a municipality, we join them in these responsibilities. We further acknowledge that Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas and Chippewas, recognized through Treaty 13, as well as the William Treaties of 1923. A shared understanding of this rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and how our collective past brought us here where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. Let it be. Thank you. May I have an approval of the agenda, please? Somebody would like to move that. Thank you. Owen? Sorry. Did you second that, Gino?
Yes, I did.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any questions or comments on the agenda? If not, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Heidi, I have to say that the way the procedural bylaw works is that if somebody doesn't raise their hand in favor, then it's considered a negative vote. So I am going to consider that you were in favor. This is a learning curve, Heidi.
And a steep one.
It can be. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? Seeing none, receipt of the minutes. This is from November 27th. I've seen those minutes. I will vote. Linda, I believe I can vote on them, but may I have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of November 27th, 2024? Guys, thank you, Steve. I think because Dave, you weren't on the committee, nor you, Heidi, that thank you, Owen. All those in favor? That carries. We have no delegations tonight, but we do have a matter for consideration. It's a memorandum from the Traffic Transportation Analyst, re Yonge Street Active Transportation Facilities draft design presentation. I believe this came to the committee for comment at one point. So now we have the actual draft. So we'll have a presentation from Courtney. Courtney, I don't know how to pronounce your last name. Is it Howe?
Yes, how?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. You are the project manager, Ainley Group. Welcome. You have the floor. And I have to say that you have 10 minutes, but if you're not finished in 10 minutes, we will move an amendment to let you continue. Thanks.
Okay. Can you see my screen okay?
I can see you okay.
You can see me, okay. Oh, hang on. Now can
Thank
you see
you.
the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Okay, so yes, I am the Linear Capital Projects Group Lead at Ainley Group. I'm in my 20th year with Ainley Group. I'm the project manager as well as the design lead for this project, which is the Yonge Street Active Transportation Facility. Please let me know if I'm going too quickly. I was practicing and was at about 18 minutes, so I'll try to get it.
I don't want you to rush. Better that we should understand what you're saying. Thank you.
Okay. So the project location is Yonge Street from Bloomington Road to Industrial Parkway South. The stretch of road is approximately 2 kilometers. Just to give you an idea of project timeline, we are currently confirming the conceptual design. We will then advance through the spring to the 60 and 90% designs, and hopefully for construction, ready for construction in the summer of 2025. So the project purpose ultimately is to improve transportation, mobility, connectivity with active transportation facilities on Yonge Street within our project limits. The significance of Yonge Street is that it's a major north-south corridor that connects high traffic destinations as well as the growing residential areas. There's a lot of new developments and a lot of future pending developments. There's planned connections, so that includes connecting to existing trails at Cannon Valley Court, at 14378 Yonge Street, which is the land opposite Industrial Parkway South. And then there's future connections planned at Elderberry Trail. We're also looking at partnership with York Region. So in addition to making sure that the facility meets town standards, we're also making sure that it meets the region requirements. And this is because we're exploring cost sharing opportunities for a multi-use pathway within the boulevard. Project scope. So it's the detailed design and construction of active transportation facilities that may include multi-use pathway or MUP, as you may hear me refer to it, and or sidewalk within the project limits. We're currently in the preliminary field investigation stage, so we have completed the topographic survey as well as a tree inventory, and the geotechnical investigation and assessment of existing street lighting is currently underway. So we've prepared an extensive list of options, and we have narrowed down that list to the 3 preferred, or the 3 highest ranking, I guess. And our plan is to then move the preferred option to the 60%, 90%, and ultimately construction. So there are many active transportation facility options that can accommodate all users or most users, but the 2 that we are considering for this project is the sidewalk and a multi-use pathway. So a sidewalk is a path intended for pedestrian use. In accordance with Accessibilities for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or AODA, the minimum width of a sidewalk is 1.5 meters. And as shown in the picture there, a typical sidewalk runs parallel to the roadway and is separated from the traveled road by a buffer that can be a curb and typically a boulevard. A multi-use pathway is a 2-way path intended for shared use by all users. So that's pedestrians, cyclists, rollerbladers, strollers. And the minimum suggested width for a MUP is 3 meters, and that's based on OTM, which is the Ontario Traffic Manual, specifically Book 18. So factors that may impact the width of a multi-use pathway, in this case, are site constraints, such as the terrain, so slopes and embankments, existing utilities and infrastructure, as well as the available property to fit the multi-use pathway within. So a MUP is typically separated, similar to a sidewalk, from the roadway by a buffer that could include curb, grass boulevard, shoulder, etc. Design considerations. So as we're moving through the conceptual designs, we are considering proper engineering, design, and safety constraints. We're looking to see where a handrail or a pedestrian barricade may be required, as well as where steel beam guide rail may be required. We're looking at compliance with AODA. So this may include the minimum width, as I just described, as well as clearance from any conflicts or obstructions, such as hydro poles, and the running slope of a facility. We're looking at utility locations and conflicts. We're considering lighting of the active transportation facility and the roadway. We're also looking at connectivity to existing facilities such as sidewalks and bus stops, mailboxes, and private residential driveways. We have to consider the impact to trees and vegetation. And then there's the topographical constraints and the need for retaining wall, and then any associated railing or fencing that will go with the wall. We have to look at the impact to stormwater conveyance. The region does have storm sewer infrastructure along this stretch of Yonge Street. So there's sewer, culverts, catch basins, as well as ditching. And then we'll also look at property constraints. So in general, we do anticipate that there will be some challenges along this stretch. There will be tree and vegetation removal. Utility relocations are anticipated, but we will minimize them wherever we can. There will be earth moving as we deal with cut and fill of the existing embankments. There'll be adjustments to existing ditching and drainage. So we may have to remove and replace storm sewer or look at realigning ditching. There may be modifications to the existing steel beam guide rail, as well as the potential implementation of double-sided steel beam guide rail, depending on its location and proximity to the active transportation facility. And then there's also significant retaining walls that would come with the railing or fencing to navigate the steep slopes throughout the site. So we do have the challenges, but we also have opportunities. So these 4 pictures show the potential opportunities for connections to existing facilities such as bus stops and existing sidewalks. There's also opportunity to connect to the new developments. There's landscaping and streetscaping, rest areas that can be implemented. And in some cases, there's an opportunity for a 4-meter wide multi-use pathway that can be set back from the road. So for example, this 3rd picture here, there's a traveled lane, there's a ditch, and then there's room on the back side of the ditch where we may be able to place a 4-meter multi-use pathway. This would mean that the existing drainage would be left as is, and then the active transportation facility would be away from the road. So 20 options were evaluated, and these included single sidewalk and multi-use pathway in one boulevard to a combination of both in both boulevards. So the options were evaluated both based on 4 categories, and these 4 categories were further divided into criteria, and they were weighted differently. So the first is technical at 30%, social environment at 30%, financial at 30%, and natural environment at 10%. So the evaluation matrix ultimately helped us identify the highest ranking facility, and then that we could review that further. So to complete our evaluation matrix, we looked at each criteria under their respective category. So for financial, does the option, how does it score for cost sharing as a cost sharing opportunity with the Region of York? What are the construction costs and the maintenance and operation costs? For technical, how complex is the design? Does it meet technical and regulatory standards? And what is it, easy maintenance and operation, or is it going to be a challenge? For social environment, does it improve the active transportation access for all users? Does it minimize impact to existing properties within the right-of-way? Does it minimize disruption due to construction? And does it meet the town's strategic plans, including the master plan and the official plan? And does it increase connectivity to town amenities, including any of the green space? For the natural environment, excuse me, does it minimize ecological impact, and does it minimize watershed impacts? So through collaboration with town stakeholders and the region, the 20 options were scored and ranked, and we came up with the following top 3 options. So the preferred option will be selected from these 3 and advance to 60%. So we have option 1, which is a west side multi-use pathway, and on the east side, a multi-use pathway or a sidewalk. Option 2 is a west side multi-use pathway, east side multi-use pathway or sidewalk connection sections, which I'll explain in a second. And option 3 is just the west side MUP. So as you can see, there's consistency in that all 3 options include a west side multi-use pathway. So these drawings help visualize the 3 options. The red line represents a multi-use pathway. The blue line is a multi-use pathway or a sidewalk. So option 1, we have the multi-use pathway on the west side and a multi-use path or sidewalk on the east for the full project limits. So from Bloomington all the way to Industrial Parkway. Option 2, we have the multi-use pathway on the west side. And then we have the multi-use pathway or sidewalk connections or sections, sorry, on the east side. So there's this area here of about 900 meters where we don't show a facility. There is a potential future signalized intersection at Elderberry Trail that would allow pedestrians from anywhere in this development here at Royal Hill Court to come down to the signalized intersection and access the multi-use path, but that way, and similar with any pedestrians south, they could cross at Elderberry and connect with the multi-use pathway. Option 3 is just the west side multi-use pathway. So more specific opportunities and considerations for each of the options. For option 1, 2, and 3, because the MUP on the west side is consistent with all 3, it offers a continuous pedestrian cyclist connection for the west side. For option 1, a MUP on the east side would offer a continuous pedestrian cyclist connection across the whole of the project limits. However, a sidewalk on the east side would be a more feasible design because it's a lesser width and it's a lower construction cost. Considerations: the design and construction challenges across the cemetery frontage, which is that 900-meter section, would increase construction costs. Construction of a sidewalk on the east side will not accommodate cyclists. And option 1 as a whole is the highest construction value. Option 2, opportunity for continuous network connection with the signalized intersection at Elderberry. And the sidewalk and MUP sections that are south of Royal Hill and north of Gilbert would reduce the scope of the difficult and challenging design section through that 900 meters because we just wouldn't have to do it there. And ultimately, it would reduce the construction costs. Consideration: construction of a signalized intersection at Elderberry Trail is required to facilitate a continuous network connection. Option 3, the opportunity, it is the lowest construction value. Consideration: pedestrians and cyclists will be required to cross at signalized intersections to access them up. So this would be at Bloomington, potentially Elderberry, and then Gilbert and Industrial Parkway. So next steps, review public feedback. We had a public information center last week. It was pretty successful, and we received a lot of good comments from the feedback that we're currently reviewing. Then we collaborate with stakeholders to confirm next phase of the design. And then we will select the preferred active transportation facility and advance it to 60, 90, and then construction. And that is the end of my presentation.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Linda, do I need a motion to receive before we discuss this?
For you, Madam Chair, no, we can go on with a motion to put the item on the floor for discussion. Thanks.
Thank you. So I need a mover and a seconder to put the motion on the floor.
Wendy, I'll put it on the floor. It's Owen Heritage.
Thank you, Owen. I've lost.
I will second it, Gino. Sorry.
Thank you, Gino. Okay, so we can now go into questions and comments for the consultant.
Wendy, sorry, it's Owen Heritage. Can you see us? I don't know if you can see us. Anyways, I do have some questions and comments if I can.
Got you all now. Thank you. Okay, Owen, then you take the first
Yeah. So thank you for putting this together and going through this in terms of the exercise and the amount of work that goes into it. I like the detail. I do have one question. My first question would be, if we go east side, west side, I think is the preferable side because it's a lower cost. You don't have the sloping on the cemetery issue. Have we discussed this plan with Metrolinx because they are planning to redo the bridge at Yonge Street, just at the north side of that? So right now on that west side, like their construction on the bridge, how we would tie in. So we go from a multi-use path to a sidewalk, because once we hit industrial, that ends. Just the other side is the bridge that's about to be redone. Have we made that connection?
No, not at this point. We are going to discuss with them though.
Okay,
But
my
our-
only
Sorry.
my suggestion on that is that bridge will probably be done before this gets approved and move forward. That bridge is scheduled, or soon to be scheduled as they make their way north, which they're delayed, but the chances are that bridge will hit the ground before this does. So
The limits of our work is Industrial Parkway. So
I get that, but
Yeah.
to tie into the town, so if we build a multi-use pathway that doesn't tie into the existing sidewalk into the town, it's a useless multi-use pathway. So we need to make that connection. I get it's outside of scope of your project and what you're doing, but I'm more addressing it to the town at this point.
I might respond, although I don't know for sure, Owen, about the timing. There is a sidewalk on the east side, and so pedestrians or cyclists, etc., could cross over at industrial onto, so that would be the only form of connectivity. I mean, I know that area well. I've tried to walk on the west side. Depending on how they're going to build the bridge, I don't know if there'll be enough room to put a sidewalk on the west side. And we have no information on that.
Yeah, my only commentary on that is we've built a large development complex on the west side, that Delmar Manor, and all the residents in there. There is no residents going in where the cemetery is. That's obviously not going to change. So I think that needs to come into effect, because anybody walking is going to be on that west side. Anybody riding is going to be on that west side. So that west side to me is the side that this would ultimately go on, just because that's where the foot traffic will be, which makes sense.
Yeah.
So if I was looking at it from not that we can make recommendations, but if we're looking at the options, we have option 1, 2, 3. I would say option 3 is probably the most economical solution to the needs and wants of that community at that south end of town. So tying into the bridge, there is room when they're actually going through the reconstruction on the bridge. All it is where they put the footing for the bridge. They need to move that. They just need to move that footing back. So you can, if the bridge itself is a set, they're going to widen that bridge anyways, because the idea is that Yonge Street's going to get wider during. Now's the time to have that conversation, though. That's
Thank
all.
you.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
No, and thank you very much. I'll refer that question to Ron Weiss has a committee, has formed a committee that interacts with Metrolinx, often in person, sometimes on Zoom. But that would be a good question for them to present. Thank you. Yes, could you, Gino?
So I have some commentary. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to note some things that I'm aware of. This section of Yonge Street along, all the way down to Richmond Hill is planned for future BRT. It's underfunded, but it's planned as a bus rapid transit corridor. The current design for that, you have a current cross section to the north, which you could, which York Region could provide to you. it's underfunded at this time, but the moving forward, you typically have a sidewalk and you have a cycling facility that's built. I know that's again, so what we're building now, I'm assuming is going to be an interim measure because again, to provide both facilities. I need to point out to those that have not, I think Dave knows this and I know staff know this, but when young, again, I'm going to reiterate this is that this is a York Region road, including the boulevard. Okay. The boulevards are the responsibility of York Region to create that platform in terms of the retaining walls, whatever it is that we need to build. Under the Municipal Act, the town, along with the municipalities, are only responsible for the sidewalk. They are not responsible for a multi-use pathway. We work with the region to build it, but in essence, the responsibility of towns and cities is exclusively for the sidewalk, unless there's some. Unless there's an agreement with York Region. So I'm not sure. And the other question I have is, what do we have in terms of roadways? There's a 36-meter right-of-way. Courtney, do you know offhand, or is it 42, or do we need property?
That's a good question. I've been working with half at a time, so I can't actually.
Because if we have
tell you.
property, so my recommendation is this, okay?
Yeah.
As it relates to utilities, you don't want to touch them. It's no different than what we do we take the position at another municipality that this is York Region's road. They are responsible to utilities, and that work typically is done as part of the BRT or road reconstruction. Again, we don't have funding to move major utilities. I would say you would have to go around them. The second point you said about going out to tender in the summer, I would say no. You complete the design. If you want a good price, you go out to tender in early January of next year. Going out in the summer, you're not going to get competitive pricing. That would be one of my comments to you. And again, if you have to move utilities, if you have Bell to move, forget it. You're waiting 3 years. So this is why I'm saying even Electra now to kind of move utilities, it will be a struggle. You will not meet your goal of going out in the summer. They're utility relocations. You have to plan those out, in advance of the contractor getting there. That work should be done. Again, this is a separate, moving forward with utilities. You're dealing with Electra, you're dealing with gas, you're dealing with Rogers, you're dealing with Bell, and anybody else. You might have York One Net on Yonge Street too. So those are my comments, as it relates to the regional right of way. I struggle with this project because I know the dollars that are going to be involved, and I know the DC money. Again, this is so everybody knows, this is being funded through development charges. So the dollars that we have available is whatever has been noted in the DC study. Okay, so when we get into grading, and I don't think, again, I haven't looked at the dollars that were put aside to construct this. I'm not sure you allocated for retaining walls or major grading. Typically, you put minimal grading. As I indicated, this is a responsibility to build this platform of York Region. Okay. And again, to lower costs, if there's an opportunity to do the design and include it in a regional project, absolutely do that. You will lower the cost. The larger the project, the unit cost will come down for the town to pay for it. So if you want to deliver this project that's economical, then I would say incorporate it as part of a York Region project. It is their responsibility. Again, this is York Region's road. They are responsible for the platform. They hear it from me all the time, right? It's not a responsibility of the town. So I said utilities doing that. Grant funding. Okay, so I'm not sure if that's been applied. That should be something that the town should be applying for. Okay, grant funding. to do this work. York Region has funding too, grant funding. They have an active transportation up to 500,000. They may have some additional funding you need to explore. There's also federal, potentially. Well, I don't know federally what funding is available, but I think you need to explore that in terms of funding. And again, I concur with what Owen. This is what we were discussing. If you have to build an interim, I want to minimize throwaway costs. And this is why I bring to the attention to you, Courtney, is if we have the design, I know I could get you the drawings from York Region, or at least town can get you some of the drawings to see what the intentions of the cross section are for this area. York Region commented on the bridge. So I'm going to bring some history into here because I know this was a town of Aurora. And Wendy, you were around at the time. There were, when Metrolinx approached, they were looking at this bridge and they were saying, okay, if you're going to be expanding it to the ultimate, and they were looking at the design of the BRT coming through, and they said, okay, to eliminate it, you need to build a tunnel through one of the abutments. And I think they were proposing one on the east side, if I'm not mistaken. Because again, they were allocating the existing width that we have between the abutments to the roadway and what the BRT, what they were trying to fit through here. I agree. The west side, there's nothing there right now. So I know your project limit, and the project should have gotten a little bit more. I know that it gets into, but to connect. So if you're building a facility, you need to connect. Okay. You can't isolate. Moving forward, you should not be building a facility that doesn't connect to something existing. So you can't stop at an industrial. So you may have to expand scope or look at maybe tweaking it. And again, this gets into what is Metrolinx moving forward with. I know Metrolinx is delaying a number of projects as their mandate has changes from when the Liberals, who was it? Was it the Liberals? I think we're still in power and things changed. So I think we need to understand, I concur with Owen that if we're going to do something, we should just do it as an interim measure. The west side, you can do an MUP on the east side, but only where the grading allows. I would not, again, venture anywhere into the cemetery. Like at that, maybe use the potential traffic signal as your cutoff point. So people at least, because there are subdivisions there. That's the unfortunate thing right now. You can't, how are those people? Are they going to walk down to Bloomington and cross the road, right? If you wanted to encourage them to walk or to use a different mode of travel, they need to be on the east side. That traffic signal, again, maybe not included as part of the cost, but you're looking at least $400,000 to construct that traffic signal. It probably won't meet warrant under York Region's mandate, which will be then a cost to the town of Aurora. They have a new policy in place, and they also have a new policy in place that says you also have to pay for 10-year maintenance. So if we have to construct that traffic signal, it's a new policy that York Region passed. As it relates to the design, Courtney, I'm going to share with you with some of the ditching work because we had some of the same issues on one of our other projects. To eliminate putting a guide rail, which are ugly, unless there's a slope or really a steep slope on the immediate east or west side, I would recommend that you look at maybe doing concrete curb and gutter. Okay. You can, and what we did was then put inlets that with a culvert that ran right through with an MUP, right? Again, adjacent to the curb, again, to minimize grading works. And just outletting, so the ditch would be further east or west. You would be basically putting the MUP next to the curb. If you do put it next to the curb, it needs to be expanded by at least 0.5 meters, 3.5, okay, for snow storage. And again, just that safety, having that safety feature in there. I know most cyclists don't want to cycle next to, this is why we moved from bike lanes into the boulevard. Most parents prefer to be away from the traffic, and this stretch of road, I hate to say it, but it's almost like a highway. People just gun it from Bloomington up to the bridge. So you have to take that in consideration, noting it until we build, the bus rapid transit system. I think what we need to build here is going to be an intermeasure from a cost perspective. While I like the idea of sidewalk and a cycle track, that's something that the region, that should be a part of the bigger project. I agree, MUP, but you need it on both sides, at least maybe on the east side and MUP, because you have residents, you have subdivisions there, right? But you would have to build that traffic signal there. I think that's your cutoff point, what you've identified, Courtney.
Yeah.
So, and I'm willing, you have Dave, you have myself that are in the industry that can, again, I have some of the solutions. When I see you've progressed a little bit more into these, you're not going to go out to tender this year. I recommend that you don't go out to tender. You go out to tender, and to get the best price is a policy that we've put in place where I work, where we did the design, you tender late fall, early spring, January. That's when you hit the market. Okay. If you want a good price, but the region has to pay. Wendy, you hear
Yes,
that?
thank you. I wasn't well aware of everything you said, but I do know that the region has to pay because it's a regional road.
And they own the boulevard.
And they own it, yeah. I just would like to add, first of all, thank you for all the information. There is, I don't know what I call it, a red light camera. I think it might be called an ASD. I'm not sure. There is one on Yonge Street now in that area to try and stop the speeding. I can't tell you exactly where it is, but I heard that somebody got a ticket there. So I know the region is really trying to slow the speed of the traffic down. So I think that whatever we do, that will probably be in the works that might help. But do we know if the region, we don't have a staff member here, do we? I mean,
Yes, we do.
who do we have here?
Michael and
Michael. Oh, good. I can't see you, Michael Bat. Who is there? Somebody else here? Mike, we don't need anybody more than Michael. So Michael, do you want to try and speak to some of the things that have been said so far? You might have more information on the region and what the region, I don't even know if the region has seen our plan. But you might have more information on what the region is intending to do. Are you able to come to the table and use one of the mics where the chairs are?
Right, this is Michael Ha.
Michael
so
Ha, hi.
Michael Bat is also here. With
Guys,
regards,
I can't see you. Are you at the podium?
no, we're just sitting right beside the podium, outside of the camera's angle.
Can you move somewhere where I can see you? I can see well, I can see from Heidi on all the chairs next to Steve. I invite you to join us. Thank you so much. A lot of hard questions. What knowledge do you have?
So with regards to the region's involvement, they are one of our key stakeholders within the project, and we've kept them in the loop from the start of the project, and we've had several meetings so far, and with regards to potential funding, so that's still under discussion. And they'll be involved in the process going forward as well.
Thank you. As Gino said, maybe Owen said it too. Maybe you all said it, but the region, this is a regional road, and they are responsible for everything except the sidewalk, which is municipal. So has the region seen, you said you've met with them. Have they seen our plan? Have they commented on it? Whether they're willing to do any of this?
They have seen earlier versions of the plan, and since we've introduced the designs to them, we have since advanced it further. But we're still under discussion with them with regards to potential funding, and we'll continue to talk to them to see what they are able to contribute.
Thank you. As was said, we really don't want to waste any money to put something in the interim and then have to tear it up. That would be very difficult for the taxpayer. So does anybody at the table have any questions for Michael?
Steve Fleck here. I don't have questions for Michael. Just I have a comment, and it's just echoing something that has already been talked about. I think there needs to be, in terms of scope, Courtney, and thank you for this great research. In terms of scope, this needs to reach the train bridge and then subsequently to the town proper, particularly if it's if we go on the west side, because I think that's you've got Del Manor Seniors Home there. You have other housing developments that are potentially going to be put on that west side. You've got the trail system that's, I know, is being talked about, and I don't want to get into troubling waters here, but potentially maybe even a men's transitional home that still might go on that spot. Might, emphasis on might. So I think there needs to be some look into scope of getting this trail to the bridge and then subsequently on to the town of Aurora, the shops, and the new developments that are going to be just to the north of there. There will be a huge number of new housing built just north of there as well. And potentially those people would want to walk down and access the trails, maybe ride all the way down to the bike lanes and the MUPs that are already along Bloomington. So I think that needs to be done. The other thing I had is a question, and this might be for Dave or for you, Courtney. It's in terms of, I get the responsibility for the sidewalk. Town needs to be that multi-use path. That might be York Region. My question is about a volume of usage. Like, is there a discussion about how much volume of traffic, be it foot traffic, be it bike or rolling traffic, that you need both? Because early on, I would guess this would not have a lot of usage. These things tend to take some time before people start to make it habitual and something that they would use. So early on, would we need both a sidewalk and a multi-use path, or would just a multi-use path be sufficient?
Courtney?
I think that would have been included with the master plan, so I'm not sure I can really speak to that.
Thank you. And I think as Gino said, if it doesn't meet the traffic warrants and we want something in place other than a sidewalk, then the municipality will have to pay for that. I think we've probably received as much information as we're going to be able to receive tonight. Would anybody like to make a motion for us to continue, but maybe with some specifics in it?
Councillor, it's Dave McLaughlin. Could I ask a few questions?
Of course.
First of all, a couple of comments. And by the way, Courtney, great design, and really pleased to see that this project is moving forward as an outcome of the Active Transportation Master Plan that many on this committee and council and the public contributed to. A couple of comments based on a little bit of context. The York Region Plan and the provincial plan all propose a continuous pedestrian and cycling facility along Yonge Street all the way down. So the decision about whether we should have a facility or not, I think, has been captured in previous master plans. And I think, Courtney, you touched on that. So it's not really, Steve, a question of numbers necessarily. And I agree with Gino and his comments about the nature of the road, having an in boulevard MUP or multi-use pathway as per OTM Book 18, at least on one side, likely on the west side, for sure, makes a lot of sense. I just, a couple questions, Courtney, in the work you've been doing with staff or in discussions with York Region. Has there been any discussion about York Region's improvement plans for this section of Yonge Street? Also, have there been any discussion in the past about any plans to signalize any of the intersections? I'll just pause now for that.
With regards to discussion with York Region about future plans, I'm not aware of any. I mean, Michael may comment on that, but I haven't heard anything about their future plans. Oh, what was the second thing? Sorry.
The intersections?
Oh,
Have
so
there-
there is discussion about signalizing Elderberry.
So that's a York Region proposal to consider signalizing at Elderberry?
I'm not sure if it's York Region, developer driven. Again, Michael would be able to speak better to that.
Thank you. Michael, do you have anything to add? Michael, can you hear me?
Hi, Wendy. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Perfect. So to Courtney's point, there's no we don't believe there's any plan for urbanization on Yonge Street. And in terms of signalization, that is we are exploring that option as part of a adjacent development application. So it's not a York Region initiative. We are trying to secure that through development.
Thank you.
Can I have just a couple more questions, if I might? Thank you.
Absolutely.
One comment about, first of all, I absolutely echo Steve, Gino's comments about that really the project limit needs to be extended beyond the bridge to make that connection, even if it's a question mark, just to make sure that Metrolinx knows that the town's intention is to carry that through. And, anything we can do, it's not every day that they rebuild and add another bridge structure as part of that work. So if there's an opportunity as part of that design to include something on the west side where there's already a sidewalk on the east side, then that's something I would argue the town should be advocating for Metrolinx and York Region so they know. Gino made a comment about multi-use pathways in the boulevard, and he's right that York Region does own the corridor. It's their road, and typically they would put in the platform for the boulevard. And very often if they're doing works and the municipality plans to put in a sidewalk or an MEP, they'll provide the platform at their cost. The sidewalk, the provision of it, maintenance of it, as Gino said, is under the municipal act, the responsibility of the local municipality. But just one interpretation change, a multi-use pathway in place of a sidewalk is been interpreted by the municipal act also as a pedestrian facility, and therefore is also the responsibility of the local municipality. Should they choose to put one in, they would also be responsible for maintaining it, just like a sidewalk. So, so it's not on York Region. And finally, last comment, as Gino said, it's a long time coming in terms of a future BRT and the kind of improvements to this corridor. I'm not sure we want to wait, 10, 15 years for this connection along this corridor. I'm a big supporter of, proceeding with the project, and one of the options, whatever the outcome of the evaluation that Courtney and her firm are doing, and that, we consider supporting that. A multi-use pathway on one side is an interim solution until we know what's happening with the rest of the road right away. It's probably a pretty cost-effective design solution. And if York Region were to come back with Metrolinx and do improvements, push curbs out, urbanize the road, the cost of restating that multi-use pathway would not be the towns. It would be York Region to Metrolinx, and they'd be responsible for reinstating whatever is there. So it won't be throwaway. So I think that's an important point for the committee to think about,
Yes.
consider, and it's not, in my opinion, a reason for, deferring this project. And last question to Courtney and to town staff. Will this committee have the opportunity before you select your preferred option and finalize that to engage this committee. So we also have the opportunity to understand your decision-making on the selection. Or will that happen well beyond the next meeting? And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So is the plan to bring these comments now of the committee to council? Or will this committee have another chance for input? I believe that's the question. And I don't know who would answer it. Michael, maybe one of the Michaels, maybe you could try.
Michael Heyer. To my knowledge, we'll be taking the comments that we received from this committee meeting today and the public meeting that we had the other day to advance our designs. I'm not sure there's an opportunity to bring it back before the design advances, but I can take it away and circle back.
Do we have the timeline? Did we see a timeline, Courtney? We did see a timeline, I'm sure. So it would depend on partly that timeline.
Yeah, sorry, 6090 through is happening through the spring, so.
Okay, thank you. Gino?
I do have a follow-up question. Courtney, at the cemetery, and I haven't stopped to take a look, is there an opportunity? I don't know where the graves are. I don't even know if there would be to grade it out as opposed to building a massive retaining wall there to build a boulevard.
So we've been looking at a 2-meter sidewalk to get into specifics there, and it would be behind the guide rail down the slope, and we would just really need a handrail on the back of the sidewalk, and we would be encroaching grading onto the cemetery property a little bit, so we would need permission to do that. If that's not allowed, then we would be looking at a retaining wall.
Okay, because I know there are restrictions with cemeteries. I mean, ideally, if there's an opportunity to grade it out and blend it, make it look nice as opposed to a massive retaining wall there or a steep slope. Again, you're trying to achieve a 3-to-1 slope, a minimum 3-to-1 slope, and sometimes again you can't achieve it without putting a massive retaining wall there, which will be very, very costly. Right. So that's why I was saying it, what do we have? What's the road width there? And, okay. I think that's it. That's it. And I'm hoping that, and typically with the detailed design, you should be going to a public meeting prior to going to tender to make sure that there's an opportunity. This should not be tendered without an open house. Okay. That's in my opinion.
We did have an open house last week. Now,
but it's at 30%. It's very minimal. I'm talking about the detailed design. Okay. In terms of 60 and 90. And again, at 60 at least you have a lot more detail. At 90, I know you don't want to make major changes. You have to make a commitment. Right. So is there an opportunity at 60, depending on the decision? I think you've heard from the committee. The cheapest alternative is going to be an MUP on the west side. I would say take it as far away from the road edge as possible, depending on the what we have in terms of right of way in the boulevard. Ideally, again, to avoid guide rails or curb work. But again, I haven't seen the design, so I can't comment further. That's why I'm asking if there's an opportunity to see the design, or at least in an open house to share it with the public. We can provide you some input.
Owen? Sorry, Owen?
No, it's Steve, Councillor.
Sorry, Steve.
No worries. Courtney, I was unable to make it to the public meeting last week due to a timing conflict. What was, you don't have to go into great detail, but I was just very curious to understand what the mood of the room was. Were people positive? Were there people opposed or negative about this?
Almost everyone was in favor. We had one individual that was concerned for construction and, disruption to access to bus stops. But for the most part, everyone is very much in favor.
May I ask you how many people attended?
We had 12 sign in, but we think we were closer to 20 to 25.
This was on Zoom?
No, this was at the office, town office.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
I have one more question for Courtney. Courtney, again, depending on the design, lighting, are we looking at pedestrian lighting or street lighting? Because I know, typically you put the street, again, you may have to backlit if you do street lighting. And I always, again, not to put York Region down, but again, the responsibility of the roadway belongs to York Region. We typically light the road with the benefit of lighting the sidewalk or the MUP in terms of backlit. But again, depending where you place those poles, I think typically 3 meters back, right? If you go further, which is part of the design, again, you're looking at pedestrian lighting and not the need for it. So I'm just curious, so have you made a decision? I know we have in certain corridors, we've just lit the pedestrian and not lit the road, again, moving forward from a cost effective. And again, if it increases cost to the project, because again, if you light the road, you may not be able to light the facility, which is what we're trying. That's our focus on it. And I know your lighting guys will speak to it. I know that was some issues with some of the design that we move forward with. So pedestrian lighting or street lighting? Sorry, that you guys were looking at.
Pedestrian lighting.
Okay, so just the pathway. Okay.
However, the existing lighting that's there now will potentially be impacted, so it'll be a combination, but the priority is the pedestrian lighting.
Okay.
Thank you. Very important piece of information. Yes, well, I've certainly had an education this evening. Heidi, imagine you have too. As I have listened to a couple of the meetings, but when the plan was originally presented, I listened to that meeting. But it's very complicated and obviously very costly, and we want to get it right. And we want it to be safe. So I think at this point, motion to receive. Do we want to try and make a motion? We can make a motion to say that we'd like it to come back to the committee, or that we'd like to have a public meeting, or both. Council could only say no. So what do you think?
We can make a motion. Sorry. I would say yes, we could make a motion.
I think we should. Thank you.
Both options. I would say put both options, whether it's another public meeting or bring it back to committee. I think this is you need
yeah, you're right. At the 60%.
Or 90. I don't know how far have you made a decision. The problem with 90 is that you're showing to us right now, you haven't established what are the options, right? What's the methodology we're going to use? What's the framework? Okay, you've shown us 3 options. Typically, your scope is determined by your budgets. I'm sorry, we live and die by our budgets, right? If you don't have the money, you can't do the things that you want to do, right? Yeah. And again, budget is determined by grant. What's York Region giving us? Made those decisions. So I think it needs to come back to be reviewed. Now, whether you choose to, whether that has been the norm here at the town to come to do a public meeting, you can do a 30%, but it should come back.
It's we've never done anything quite like this. And this is obviously a very well-educated committee and getting more educated as we go along. I think that it's completely in order for that motion that it comes back to the committee. I certainly will fight for that at council. But also, as was mentioned, this is a big public project as well. And I think it would be worthwhile to hear again from the public once we're a little farther along the way. So council, the only thing they can say is no. So I'll fight for it and let's see what happens. So, but I need to have a Wendy. Okay, hold on. Linda's sending me a motion. Hi, Wendy, what's being proposed will be captured. Linda, I couldn't get the rest of the. Linda, are you able to speak on mic?
Hi, yes, through Madam Chair. The ideas that are being proposed to amend the motion, that would be captured in the minutes. So it's really not necessary to amend the motion to receive the comments because they will be captured in the minutes.
But there's nothing against us amending the motion, is there? Linda, just to be like double pronged about this?
I believe it is preferred that the motion be moved as it is. And like I said, any comments will be captured in the minutes. So your desires for it to come back to the committee will be captured.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going rogue here, Linda. Would also have then a second motion coming out of council. Leave the main motion and somebody do a second motion to include both the public open house and also for it to come back to this committee at whatever you think is appropriate completion. Owen, thank you. It's not protocol, but nobody at the committee is going to get into trouble. It would just be me.
Sorry, Wendy, can we put that in there that it comes back at 60%? Because that would be enough. That then it's not too far in design for a change.
Thank you. So, Linda, it's a second motion, and that there be an opportunity for a further public open house at that stage.
Through you, Madam Chair. So would it work if we just added a third clause then? So to receive the memo and to receive the committee's comments, and that the committee desire
the committee request
support or request that a public open house be held, and that it come back to the committee at 60%.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda, for your help. Okay, so we can vote on both of those at the same time. I will need a mover and a seconder. Okay, Linda, it's already on the first motion is on the floor. Is that correct?
Yes, Madam Chair. Moved by Owen and seconded by Gino.
So what happens with the further motion? Do we need somebody?
We should have a mover and seconder for that amendment to the motion. Yes.
Okay. So
and a vote on that.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. And who would like to second this? Thank you, Steve. And so should we vote separately? Should we do a vote on each of them?
Yeah. Could we please have a vote on the amendment and then a vote on the motion as amended?
Thank you. Thank you. All those in favor of the amendment? Thank you. Unanimous. All those in favor of the main motion? Unanimous. Thank you very much. Linda, when you see me on Tuesday, you can give me you know what if you like. You can give me shit, Linda, when you see me next, because I know this is not generally procedure. It used to be procedure with the committees, but things have changed. Thank you. So where are we at? Hey, Linda, can you wipe out what I said on the tape? Okay. Okay. Where are we? I don't have anything further in my script, Linda. Maybe in the second attachment.
Hi, Madam Chair. Next is informational items, but we have none, and then new business.
Okay, thank you. Is there any new business? Thank you, Steve. What would go ahead?
Thank you, Councillor. This came out of a discussion that broke out on one of the Aurora Facebook pages. I think it was the Aurora Community Connects page. And then some people contacted me privately about this. And this would be, I'm just posing this to generally to the committee and also to the town, to staff about the feasibility of something like this. I don't know how much work needs to go into it. And it's really about getting the stretch of the Aurora Parks and Aurora Arboretum trail that runs from the senior center to the Aurora Leisure Complex plowed in the wintertime. The town does now with our own sidewalk paving units, I think does an absolutely incredible job of clearing most of the sidewalks. Any of the sidewalks that I walk on in my neighborhood in Wellington Lanes are in great shape, in fabulous shape. I'm just wondering if we could get one of those sidewalk plows to drop a blade whenever we've had some snow and plow it, just take a run from the senior center on that paved path all the way to the Aurora Family Leisure Complex. Again, I was contacted privately by people that said they would make use of that path. They feel uncomfortable walking on it when there's any type of snow. And they said if it was plowed, like the trails are, the Tom Taylor Trail is in Newmarket, that they would make more use of it. I walk there almost every day and it's fine for me, but I do see how it would be more attractive and potentially get more use if it was plowed. It's about a 1 kilometer stretch, roughly. And it is paved the whole way. And there is ample room for a plow to turn around at one end and then head back the other. And also the plows are stored at the facility on Industrial Parkway anyway. So they're in the vicinity. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. I have had a lot of trouble getting paths plowed that weren't supposed to be plowed. I was able to do it 1 year in Tamarack Park as a pilot study. This would have to be raised, and this would have to be a motion. I would have to make a motion to present to council to be voted on by council. So maybe you and I could speak. It would have to be in the next cycle. The motions have to be presented they have to be ready for the committee of the whole. So maybe you and I could speak about this. Thank you. Do you have well, we have each other's emails anyway.
Yes, we do, Wendy. So I'll just contact you privately about this.
Yes. I mean, to me, it makes a lot of sense. Again, it's about the cost, and yeah, let's try. Yes, Gino.
So I support Steve on this, and typically I'm going to speak to sidewalk snow plowing. We have park staff, and I'm assuming it's parks. Again, the parks are covered in snow in the middle of winter. I don't know how many are here in Aurora, but they typically are the ones that are manning the sidewalk plows. So if they're sitting in the yard, unless they're tendering to planting in the greenhouse for future flowers in the parks, I can't see why this is additional cost to the city, to the town. I'm sorry. that they're here, they're already, showing up to work, and it's maybe just saying, okay, it's not a priority, but maybe after the major snowstorm, after all the sidewalks, that just to do this pathway. I can't see it being and again, I don't know if you can answer it. Is it town staff that does the sidewalk plowing? Because, typically it is, because they have nothing else. They can't do anything else in the winter. So you utilize that staff to do the sidewalk plowing to keep them busy. So that's when you're saying there's an extra cost. What cost? From labor perspective, you're already paying for it.
Actually, it's a very complicated situation. I don't have enough time to go through everything, but anyway, I think it's a very good idea. I think it's an important path to be plowed for the use of our residents. It just would be considered a change in service level, and that would have to go through council. And I could speak to it. Anybody could speak to it when the motion is presented. But it's not as simple as it sounds. So
no, most cities, I'm going to speak to it, are the trails are not plowed.
Right.
But again, given the location, given the circumstances, there should be, like any rural, there's always should be an exception. Well, if it's a policy, that's fine. But again, when we're looking at, if we're going to say, well, it's going to cost, or this is going to open the floodgates. No, it won't. You can't pave a granular base. Again, you're not paving. This is a unique situation where it makes sense. So I can't see. I mean, if you need us to come to council, I'm curious. I'll come or maybe log into the meeting and listen to the discussion, because unless I just fail to see why this would cost so much more when you have, again, it's not a priority. You do the sidewalks, but again, it's something when they finish the sidewalk, again, if it's one sweep, less than a kilometer, it's, how long is that going to take? An hour or less?
So I'll just tell you, when Tamarack Park and the stormwater pond next to it, that was a fiasco, and residents couldn't use the park, and all they wanted is for the town to plow the path from Henderson to, I think, Tamarack. And the amount of resistance I met was enormous. The only way it passed was that Councillor Thompson suggested we do it as a 1-year pilot project, and it passed because there was a big discussion about service level. And even though we were taking away service level from the residents by not allowing them to use their park, council said no. So, yes, it's all complicated. So let's see what we can do with it. Again, it will have to be a motion. So Steve and I will work on that and present it for the next cycle in February, Steve.
I'll email you tomorrow, Councillor Gartner, on this.
And I understand it does not make sense. I understand. I've started my 22nd year. You know how your arms are? I've done that a lot. Anyway, I think unless anybody else has new business, I'd like to thank both of our staff, Michael and Michael, for joining us tonight. I know it makes for a long day, and we appreciate it. So I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Thanks, Owen. Heidi, why don't you second this one? All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody.